All right. Well, thanks so much. As advised, we'll go ahead and kick off at the top of the hour. So for everyone who's watching the recording and also for everyone who's here live, thank you so much for being here. I'm Kristen. I'm an account executive here at Branch. I've been with the company for about 3 years. It's been a wild and really great ride. And one of the favorite parts of my job is that I get to meet really, really interesting people that are building products that are changing, the way that we interact with each other and the way that we do things. So I have a few of said people on our panel today that I'm excited to introduce to everyone. And just so that you're oriented, Branch is a deep linking company, and we also provide attribution. So we get to work with some of the panelists already with their companies in terms of making sure that if a user is clicking on a link on a mobile device, that link effectively detects whether or not they have the app installed and that we send them to the right place. So if you have any questions about Branch and you want to chat about it, you can always message me directly. It's just Kristen@branch.io or drop it in the chat. And yeah, we're really looking forward to the discussion today. So I'll go ahead and introduce our panel. I think if we want to move forward to the slide with the panelists, that's perfect. Oh, we could bounce back if you want. We want to do housekeeping first, so everyone knows. So you are muted. So if you have a burning question and you are not on the panel, we won't be able to hear you. However, we are really excited for everyone's questions. So please do submit them in the chat, and there is going to be time for Q&A at the end. So we'll look forward to engaging with the audience then. And also the meeting, as mentioned, is being recorded and it will be shared after the event. If there's anything you want to pop back to or you want to share it with your coworkers or anyone else in your life. Great. So as mentioned, we have a very exciting panel today. So first we have Liz Emery. So Liz is a senior director of mobile app strategy at Tinuiti. And she's responsible for driving innovation and performance in partnerships with all of the divisions across Tinuiti, including client strategy, ASO, search, social, display, CRM, and analytics. And she focuses on staying at the forefront of the industry and enabling insights to transform the agency's mobile approach. So Liz is very busy, is my most takeaway from that, and hopefully has some good insight for us on the latest and greatest. And then we also have, I'm trying to go in order here, we have Kabir. So Kabir Kabir Bedi is the product lead on Amazon's shopping app on mobile and tablets. You guys have probably heard of Amazon. He manages browse and navigation experiences for the #1 shopping app in the App Store. Humble brag. And these include machine learning based recommender systems for content personalization, mobile UX experiences, and 0 to 1 in new products. As a thought leader at Amazon, Kabir coaches teams on experimentation design and A/B testing. And outside of Amazon, he's involved with Product School and Product Mentor at Paragon One, with specialties in machine learning, recommender systems, collaborative filtering, 0 to 1 product development and strategy, mobile technology, and UI and UX design. So we're very happy to have you here. And then next up, we have Omi. So Iyamu, we're getting it, is a proud immigrant from Nigeria who is the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Artist Crowdfund Exchange. He has a global background growing up and living between the UK, Canada, the US, and Nigeria. He's coming close to 15 years now working in tech across multiple roles, SWE, TPM, and PM, of which I think I only know what one of those means, but I'm looking forward to hearing more. His core background is in machine learning, but he's also spent over 5 years working in the privacy space. At Google, he led different privacy teams and efforts and worked on privacy engineering solutions across payments, assistant, search, health, and ML research. Prior to Google, he co-founded an autonomous drone surveillance startup where he also worked as a PM at Microsoft and as an SWE at a few other companies. Outside of Google, he mentors founders and high school kids from underprivileged communities, and his passion project right now is repurposing shipping containers for building computer schools in villages back home to teach coding to children aged 9 through 15. Super happy to have you here, Omi. And last but not least is Kyle. So Kyle Evans is the lead product manager at Teem by iOffice. Kyle is a writer, a podcast host, and a product leader. As a longtime product practitioner, he has worked in a variety of industries, including finance, healthcare, education, and now workplace management. Through this, Kyle has helped many teams and companies with their product strategies and implementation. Outside of the office, he is an avid reader, woodworker, and a prolific dabbler, which I appreciate. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I'm so excited to have this panel here. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off just with asking you, beyond what was just shared, to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do. And a fun thing we like to do is mention an app that you have on your phone that others might find surprising or might be unique to you. So I'll go ahead and let Liz kick us off.
Perfect. So you did an awesome job with my bio. So at Tinuiti, I oversee all things mobile, as well as work on ad tech solutions. So Omi, I love that you have that privacy background. I live and breathe privacy right now, all things MarTech, first party data, infrastructure, and really essentially future-proofing our clients. For those who don't know Tinuiti is the largest independent performance marketing firm across Google, Facebook, Amazon. We have knowledge in search, social, mobile apps, hooray, CRM, and email marketing. And yeah, and I think apps that I have on my phone, so there's two that pop up. The first one is all about puzzles and gaming. It's called like Clued Up, and it's all about like going around the city and solving riddles. I'm really cool, guys, I promise. And then the second one is called Todoist, and it's my to-do list. And I am very type A, so I like to have lists for my lists. So if you ever looked in this, you'd be like, wow, she tracks way too many things. So I'm an organization crazy person.
Okay, I love this. I feel that your organization would be very helpful to the game that you mentioned. Like, you were probably pretty good at that.
I do a lot of word puzzles. And so I did it with a bunch of friends this past weekend, and they'd be like, I can't solve this riddle. I'd be like, I got it. Don't worry, guys.
All right, I love this. Well, thanks so much, Liz. We're really happy to have you here. And Kabir, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure. Hi, good morning, or good evening if you're elsewhere in the world. I'm Kabir, and I am a product manager at Amazon, overseeing a lot of our browse and navigational functionality. And what that particularly means is, how do we help customers navigate an app that allows you to buy everything from a kayak to notebooks to luxury bags to underwear in a very small form factor. And so helping customers navigate about 100 different programs, departments, features in a way that's not overwhelming, just given the amount of options that the app can have. Besides that, something that I really particularly enjoy about my work and generally the world of UI and UX is the ability to build empathy. It's a soft skill that you can practice outside the work, and it really, really benefits being able to channel thinking about what are the points of joy, unhappiness, frustration that a user is experiencing as they're interacting with your product, and I really enjoy taking that particular lens to my work. A few apps that I like. I'll mention two which I think have done a very good job recently. One is the Marriott app. I think the Marriott app, they sort of redesigned it in the second half of last year and have very good UI of allowing you to view imagery of their hotels, and at the same time accomplish tasks such as booking, also revisiting your existing bookings. And then the other one that I think the company has invested in very well and done well is LinkedIn. LinkedIn invested in its feed quite a bit, and now the LinkedIn feed over the last about, I'd say, 12 to 18 months for so many people has surpassed there's a usage of their pre-existing feeds such as Facebook. And so I think that's a great investment by the company and a job well done.
Great. I like your product manager approach to that question. That was so spot on for a PM. It was like, let me not just tell you an app that's on my phone, but let me identify what they're doing well and how basically how you could integrate it. It was great. So thanks so much. And yeah, I as a customer, at Amazon, I think, things have evolved a lot at the company. So definitely interested to hear some of the stories. And I'm sure you have a lot of learnings that you're able to share. So thank you so much for being here. Great. And then Omi, I will kick it off to you.
Hi guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to folks all. Oh, good night too. Hi, my name is Omi. I lead all of product and tech for ACE. ACE, for those who don't know, ACE, we are brand spanking new startup in the blockchain and NFT space, introducing new funding, new social and direct funding models in the sports and entertainment industry. So we're essentially helping early and growth stage talent in sports and entertainment gain direct funding from their fans through their purchase of NFTs, right? Before this, I was at Google for a long time. It's at Microsoft. I've founded a couple companies in the past too. My core background is in ML and AI. I've been doing ML stuff before it was cool. I've been in ML since 2010, right? So Kabir, we probably have a lot to talk about, right? So what else? I do a lot of stuff outside of work. I am also the chronic dabbler. I fail at playing a lot of instruments. I should say I have tons of. I have a guitar too right there, the ukulele, drums, blah blah blah, saxophone and stuff. I'm a much better singer than I am a pianist or any of the other instruments. So, but yeah, that's I love helping people, and that's sort of why a lot of the things that I sort of do throughout my career have all been sort of laced with that sort of helping people sort of grow. I like to view myself as a great coach and mentor. So I love doing things that sort of help people become the best that they can be, right? Oh, sorry about that. Become the best that they can be, right? Some apps on my phone that I absolutely love. The app that we have a love-hate relationship is Audible, because my core PM skills, Kabir, is that because of Amazon, is that there are tons of things with Audible that I don't like, but I use Audible every single damn day for hours on end. And I'm like, oh man, this could just be better. This could just be better. This could just be better if it just did this. Anyway, but that's that. But the app that I think a lot of people, that I find that a lot of people don't know about, but I've been using for years. It's an app called Cam Scanner. So if you have like documents and stuff, like I find like you just take a picture of it and it scans it as if it's like a scanned up. It is simple and bloody amazing. Like I do it for everything. If I open mail and I see something that's super important that I need to keep, I just scan it, and I do that for everything. I get a new passport, scan it. I have driver's license, scan it, everything, and it's just there, and I can email it and text it. It's beautiful.
This is great. Yeah. You're also making our lives easier. Another PM response, which is like, let me make things more effective.
But then the last app that I think is extremely useful, shameless plug here, is Ace. So you should download the Ace. We are in beta right now. And I think that if you know any talents or creative folks, Ace is going to become, we are going to become their go-to app for pretty much everything. So yeah, that's it. That's it for me.
That's great. Thanks so much, Omi. Yeah, it sounds like you've definitely been on the cutting edge of a lot of things. And I think both myself and the rest of the folks here on the line are probably interested to hear about NFTs, because I've heard them pop up, more and more about them, and, just thinking about investing, and is this, what type of investment should I categorize this as, and those types of things. So super excited to have you here. Thank you. And then Kyle, definitely want to kick it off to you as well for an intro.
Yeah, thank you. So I am right now the product manager at Teem, where we focus on workplace solutions. So, how can we make working just better? And so it's been, I think we'll probably talk more about this, but super interesting time, especially as, so many people have been working remotely. So how does that kind of impact remote work, in-office work, a whole bunch of that sort of stuff as people start to get back into the office. So super interesting. But I've been in product management for a long, long time, coming up on 15 years across a number of industries, from finance to education to healthcare to marketing and sales, and now in workplace. And outside of that, kind of like you mentioned, I am a prolific dabbler. So I do woodworking as kind of a hobby slash side thing. You can see that we enjoy a lot of music. So I've got guitars and ukuleles and other things. We used to have a keyboard in here, but we ran out of room, so it got moved out. And then just I like to try my hand at a whole number of things. So 3D printer, laser engraver, like all just, I guess, maybe typical product manager. I don't know. Like I have to try all sorts of different things and just maybe not become like expert in it, but try and become proficient in a number of different hobbies and things. So also writing, kind of like you mentioned, in podcasting. So do quite a bit of writing, do a product management newsletter. So you can, called Product Thinking. You can find out more about that. And we do a podcast as well called Product by Design. And then I do a bunch of other writing as well, just on Medium and other places. Kyle Larry Evans is .com is my website if people want to see that. But yeah, so as far as apps go, I'll just call out one that I use. I've been using, I actually use it daily, and it's called Dailyo. So I don't know if people are familiar with it, but it's kind of like a journaling, like a micro journaling type app where you can record activities that you've done, how you're feeling each day, and then just like jot some notes down from your day. So I think I'm on like day over 800 or something like that. So I've been using it for consecutively every day for a long time. And I have been into journaling and writing for a long, long time. And so it's like it's a super cool app to just pop up at the end of the day and jot down some notes, like how your day was, how you're feeling, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'd call that one out. It's a good one.
That's great. Thanks so much. Yeah, a few coworkers and I, one in particular, were speaking about, journaling, and just if you're a type of person that tends to be very hard on yourself, which I am, going through the day and marking down your wins, like it's this place where you don't even realize kind of, what it is that you're accomplishing sometimes. And they can be small things, like you actually made it to your yoga class that day, class at your house, or you successfully accomplished a couple of things. And then, one of the things we were talking about is writing down things that you wished had gone differently or that you had handled differently. And I was talking about that with him and saying, I feel like that could be really negative. Like I could get in the space where I'm just like beating myself up. But for him, it was looking back at those journals and actually thinking, hey, how can I handle this better tomorrow, and making those changes. But then looking back, like if you look back 800 days, he was like, when I started a year ago, my problems are now laughable. And I'm so proud that I'm in a better place now. And that the things I was struggling with then, I've made it through. And that won't be true with all of them. But yeah, I think that's great. And someone in the chat is asking what the name of that app is, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Dailyo. And I put it in the chat as well.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Yeah. So I think, thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves. On that note, talking about, COVID and some of these, the ways that, at least our team at Branch has been managing that. We'll go ahead and kind of jump in and ask, obviously this was an unusual year. I would love for you guys to share a little bit about how COVID and the changes that COVID has brought has affected your job and how you've personally adapted. So I'll let whoever wants to start first take that one.
Sure, I can start. I'm one of the I fall into the bucket that COVID didn't really affect me as much. COVID started while I was at Google, so like, and the work culture is very work from home friendly. So I typically work from home even like twice a week, usually, because I live all the way in Oakland and the office is all the way in Mountain View, and that drive is not funny. So so I work from home when I can. So it was. And even while we're in the office, most of the meetings I have are over VC anyway. So it really wasn't that big of a change. I think the biggest thing was that some of my teams, like new hires, would come in. I never met them physically, and I'm the whole welcome wagon, So I'm like, hey, and I'll go to your desk, and you'd have all this swag, and I'll be like, listen, come have lunch with me, come have lunch, and we're not able to do that. So I think, yeah, I think that's the biggest change, not being able to meet like new teammates, and really truly make them feel welcome. Also offsites, and you can't really have offsites, and all the things. Strangely, the thing that I didn't foresee, but when it happened, was when we're trying to do a design sprint, and then I'm like, holy crap, we can't all be on VC all day. Just in this, we can't do this. So there's so many things that change that need to be readjusted. But with respect to personally, not like it wasn't that great of a change for me anyway.
Yeah, I can jump in here. Very similar on my side. So being in mobile and mobile app, obviously time spent really increased with that, avenue, right? So like our clients actually saw, some decent growth because people were streaming more, people were doing more with e-commerce, like just consumer habits changed. So my life actually got busier. And the company I work for, Tinuiti, did a great job weathering the COVID craziness in terms of staffing and our team and making sure we didn't have to make many changes at all with the team. I think the biggest challenge, on our side was we had to change our strategies, right? Because performance changed, pricing changed. So we did see fluctuations actually within the platforms that we work with. But overall, our clients continue to grow that were in the mobile app space just based on consumer behaviors.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Kabi.
Sure. I'll just be brief. I think there were lots of changes personally and professionally. On the personal front, I think what I observed folks having to adjust to was redefining boundaries of where personal life, or where rather professional life ended and where personal life started. In the home, and I saw sort of all sorts of different models of people doing that well and people not doing that well. And I think I earlier on also did struggle with that, but sort of eventually had to get used to it. And I think on the professional side, my sort of big observation, besides just the massive growth in e-commerce, which Liz already mentioned, and it is across all sort of technology products experienced, I think the point that I saw that we needed to make a special effort to was to be continuing to think big and continuing to be able to brainstorm with groups of people in a virtual setting. That's not something that had ideation of products, was not something that had been tested virtually before, and necessarily tools were not available to be able to support that. And so to be able to do that was, in my view, a struggle when we started, but everyone again had to adjust and learn.
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of the points made. I think those are great. Personally, for me, I'd say I was on the highly impacted side. Going into COVID, the business that I was at was impacted immensely, and through a whole bunch of changes. I actually transitioned from the role I was in to a different role early in COVID, just due to a whole bunch of those changes. So it was impactful in that way. So being on initially on the hiring side, so hiring people into kind of a remote environment, and then going through that hiring phase, which was really interesting. Never meeting in person, or never having met in person anybody that I'm currently working with. So massive changes, and then kind of going into the whole workplace environment, in the company that I'm in now, which is initially was much more geared towards in office, and now is very much how do we handle both remote and in office, so kind of this hybrid workplace environment. So shifting the whole thought process around that. So personally, I guess from a personal front, I'll give two quick points. I handled it, or kind of shifted into kind of like I mentioned, really leaning into how to be much more, I guess, lean into kind of the creative economy and expand what I'm doing personally. So not just all about my work, but also what are some of the things that I'm doing outside, both with the writing and podcasting, as well as just some of those personal things that I'm doing. So it's not everything tied to just the work that I'm doing in office, but also the things that I'm doing outside. I feel like I really leaned into that for both personal development, but also professional development, and I think that opened a lot of doors for me personally and professionally. And then on the professional front, we think, and I think a lot about this idea of distance. There's kind of this term of psychological distance, which has some components to it of temporal, spatial, and social distance. And as we all kind of got into our remote working, we had all of those distances between us. So how do we start to narrow some of that social distance, which is one of the key factors, and really working with my teams and our teams to make sure that just because we're socially or because we're physically distanced, that we could start to really focus on that social distance factor, and that it didn't become a barrier to us working together. We weren't going to be able to overcome the physical distance, but making sure that we were still doing those things so that the social barriers weren't going to become impediments to the work that we were doing. So, putting things in place that took a lot more effort than they would if we were physically in the same location, but building those relationships and doing things very intentionally and purposefully to make sure that we were building trust within our teams and with other teams, through conversations and through water cooler type things, just on an ongoing basis, and within our teams too, having those lunch hours and those times to actually build rapport with each other. So I think that was a big shift, and I think a lot of people have done it differently, but it has to be very, very purposeful and very intentional in order to overcome some of the things that were easy when we're together and become difficult when we're not physically together.
Yeah, I appreciate a lot of you sharing, the personal side of this and also the professional side of this. It's interesting because during this introspective time, whether you wanted to be introspective or not, there is this obvious, space for it that has developed. And I think from a personal side and a professional side, you see a lot of adaption, right? Or change that's happening. So whether it's products completely pivoting or products entirely spinning up, right? And I think the same thing for personal, right? There's like these aspects of yourself that are either entirely new that are coming to the surface, or that you're pivoting away from, even if it's like pivoting away from something that you found to be negative, or pivoting towards something that you're seeing as positive. So I definitely appreciate you guys sharing that. And I think an interesting question to go to next is, as you know, COVID is, you know, I would say, I don't want to say ending, but as more people are becoming vaccinated and are going to be less physically distanced and kind of re-engaging in some of those social behaviors, what shifts do you think that that's going to drive in consumer behavior? And will mobile still be top of mind? And if so, how so? What does that look like?
I can go first on that. You know, in my view, when we've been doing certain actions for a year and a half, and suddenly sort of society changes where we no longer need to do those actions, many of those actions will still persist. And so for some it is ordering groceries online, for some it is increasing the amount of, you know, what they might be doing takeout or pickup. And then for some it's also been sort of recalibrating how they choose to spend their money. Broadly, savings rates have gone up this past year because people haven't had that much. And so in my view, if I have to say, I think mobile will become even more relevant because customers' habits, many of them would have become permanent. And the fact that we're having a session like this in a mobile setting would not change once, even if we can start going out for meals or for social activities. And so it's sort of a step level societal shift. Some of it will probably go back, but in my view, a large part would just continue. And that's what, for sort of a lot of the industries, it's been about a 5 to 7 year progression, acceleration of the change towards digital.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you. In my role, like I said, I work with a large variety of apps across verticals. And really what I see is that we're seeing, you know, this increase in e-commerce especially, but we're seeing that people love ease. People love convenience. People want to continue using these experiences because over the last year and a half, Kabir, to your point, people have invested. So like app marketers have invested in their experiences to make them stronger, more user-friendly and sticky. And I'm totally on board with you that I think that this isn't going anywhere. And I think that if anything, mobile time is going to increase, because I know for myself, I don't want to go into a physical store anymore. And I'm also a dual screener, right? Even when I'm watching TV, I have my phone and maybe I'm doing something else at the same time. So I don't see those physical behaviors changing post-COVID. If anything, I see them continuing to grow.
Yeah, I was looking at some data before, and over the past decade, according to Recode, like a mobile media consumption has increased 460%. Like it's dramatic. While everything but desktop media consumption has decreased. So desktop has like trended up slightly, but mobile has just, you know, skyrocketed. And you know, in the US, the share of e-commerce on mobile is approaching 50%. And, you know, I think worldwide it's probably more. So like, I think it's to the Kabir's point, you know, it's an acceleration that took place of, you know, bringing in the trends that were going to take, you know, 5 to 10 years over the course of a single year. And that it's normalized so many things over a very, very short period of time and accelerated those trends that, you know, it's not just the purchasing, but the media consumption and the working and all of the things that we're doing. And I think that is something that's only going to continue to accelerate, just as even as we go back to, you know, to being able to do some of the things that we were able to do before, that, you know, remote work has been normalized. And, you know, it's not just the, you know, mobile as a as a thing that we have. You know, people themselves are mobile. Like mobile is a kind of a state of being, and you know, remote work being normalized, like people are going to be able to go and work wherever they want more than they ever have before. And so like being able to take that and do that wherever you want. And then the technology, like as it has advanced so significantly, it will just continue to advance. So like bringing the ability for people to be mobile and then the technology advancing even more rapidly, like those things combining just continue to accelerate the trends that we've already seen, so that you know, people will be even more mobile than before, and the technology is only going to continue to enable that.
Yeah, I completely agree with the points here. The way that I like to think about this change is one, it's really just an acceleration on what was on a trend that was already happening, right? And if you look at the product adoption curve, right, we were really in the laggards phase of everything moving mobile. You had companies that were adamant that they would never allow remote work. You have to you can only sign in the office, so you absolutely have to be physically present to be able to do these things. You have stores and that were fighting the mobile shift and say, we are going to remain brick and mortar, really having to shift and be like, you know what, we need to invest in more warehouse space and invest in an actual mobile front end space. So it's really an acceleration of that, what you call it, curve. So I think that the blessing that COVID has given us is this trend, right? Being that now we have learned the things that there are many things that we have learned that we thought that we couldn't do, or that we would hate constantly doing in a mobile setting, that we now see that, you know what, this is absolutely fine. But then we also learned that there are things that we absolutely cannot turn mobile. Like nothing is going to replace like a true offsite, like with the team. Nothing is going to replace the synergies you get when like you have 5 folks in front of a whiteboard and just sort of doing that stuff. So I think that we are going to find a blend and a sort of mix. Nothing is going to replace the intimacy of having a family dinner like in a restaurant, as opposed to, you know, over Zoom or Zoom birthdays. Nothing's going to replace that. Those suck, just say. But so there are some things that we have learned that are absolutely going to not move mobile, and we're not going to optimize for that, right? But we're going to find an in-between, what you call it there. And I think it's going to be more on things sticking mobile than ever before. So that's just my take on it. So.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. It's the takeaway I'm hearing from this is mobile is here to stay. It's really important to continue to invest in it. However, it's not investing blindly, right? It's looking and saying, what is it that's still a strong mobile trend and a mobile behavior, and how do we build around that and enable that? And then also respect that there are these moments that are going to be offline, and kind of evaluating maybe how you complement those in mobile, but not how do you replace them, right? So I think that that's interesting. And as someone that thrives in work from home, I'm so about it. I do miss, the connection with my teammates. And I'm curious to see how the market innovates to allow that to be possible without kind of backpedaling on some of the freedoms that remote culture have allowed. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some of that as well. And I do want to do some rapid fire questions for each of you. We unfortunately only have less than 10 minutes until we're supposed to open this up until chats. So I'm going to go for rapid fire questions, and then I'm hoping to sneak in one more group question at the end. So Omi, I'm actually going to bounce back to you. So in the art space, NFTs are very hot. As mentioned, I've heard about them in my podcast and I've been spinning my wheels. But how do you think about them as being someone that's on the inside and their evolution, not only this year, but also beyond?
That is a fantastic question. So the great thing about any new tech, and NFT is relatively new, it's not like brand spanking new, but it's relatively new. It's becoming it's mainstream. It's becoming mainstream. It's teetering on that edge right now. I think that we are in the phase whereby folks are finding the actual sticky uses for NFTs, right? And there are people are applying it to many different things, and it's not necessarily going to be what's in vogue now that is going to be what stands the test of time, right? Right now, the biggest use case for NFTs today is in the art world with crypto art and whatnot. I think that that's going to stick around, but I don't think that that's going to be the biggest player moving forward. At some point, somebody's going to spend $100 million on an NFT and be like, I just got a picture? Like, what am I doing? You know, at some point, someone's those are going to be reined back and things are going to normalize. But the actual, given that it's a cryptographic token, right? The actual strong use cases that I see in the future is for unique signage or certificates of ownership or representation. Those things are what I think that are going to stick, and we already have new startups and that are using NFTs in this way, Ace included. Just saying.
So to be honest, I'm riveted by this, and I think we need a separate session just for you to talk to us about NFTs. So I'm nominating that. But I would just ask you, can you, for everyone on the line, just to be clear, describe and say what NFT stands for and what it actually is?
All right, so NFT stands for non-fungible token. So it's been around, the concept of so let me take a step back. In true layman's term, what's a token, right? A token, when we talk about tokens, we're talking about a cryptographic token, right? A cryptocurrency is one kind of cryptographic token, right? But cryptocurrencies are fungible, meaning that one Bitcoin is the exact same as another Bitcoin. You can change it, and that's why it can be used as a currency, because it's fungible, right? A non-fungible token is the direct opposite of that, right? One NFT token is not the same as the other, right? They're both absolutely unique, right? So that's what it means. So think of if you bought, think of if there's only ever one Bitcoin, and it's not Bitcoins, it's Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it's singular. All the different coins are all singular, you know, and you can't sort of exchange them for each other. And there is no way to exchange them for each other. Boom, then you have, that's how you should think about when you think about what an NFT is. So it's a singular representation that can't be sort of changed. And that now brings, given that it's a cryptograph, and given that I keep saying cryptograph, I'm trying not to say cryptographic, given that it's, given the nature of it, that's what makes it, the uniqueness of it, right? That's what makes it great for signed ownership and representation, because it's singular in its states, I guess.
Great. Thank you so much. I think the takeaways here is this is hot and we need to do another session. So thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to kick it over to Kabir. So Kabir, how do you think online shopping is going to evolve now that physical stores are starting to reopen? Just kind of going a little bit further on the last conversation. and given that they may even go back to full capacity?
Sure. I see sort of maybe 4 broad trends that I'll just briefly touch on to answer your question. I think the first is that the stores will have to really provide a new value proposition to be able to bring customers back in. And so that means that stores will have to invest in sort of merchandising, but also coming up with hybrid solutions. Walmart and Target have done very well with the store pickup products that they launched right before COVID, and then everyone sort of accelerated that during COVID. And so stores will have to find reasons to bring people in, because that's not a requirement anymore for someone to be able to fulfill their shopping mission. And so it'd be very interesting to see what do the physical retailers do to be able to bring back in footfalls. I think the sort of second aspect that I see for sort of e-commerce that is doing very well and will continue to do so will be the role of video shopping. So video as a medium to be able to share ideas, to be able to and sort of particularly actually Asia sort of leading the charge in that, where in China there are a lot of very, very good live streaming shopping apps that sort of allow people to do that. And so the role of video, not only as a way for media consumption, but as a way for actually interactive communication that can then lead to shopping. 3 is going to be the role of influencers. And so influencers are probably, in my view, going to be the dominant force in the space of e-commerce, because online advertising, sort of advertisements, people are a lot more immune to, and then given that there are still a lot of hurdles of how do you encourage a hedonic shopping experience on e-commerce. And so that means that influencers have a very big role to play to be able to recommend. And that's why you have Instagram last week announced a lot of great improvements for how content creators can sort of make money through shopping as well. And then the fourth trend that I really just see is that I think one of the challenges that e-commerce has is that it is inherently a lot more transactional than it is browsing. And so the same sort of dopamine hit or that you may get when you're browsing at a department store, window shopping is very hard to do and hasn't really been done well in the e-commerce space. And that's because all of the e-commerce was shopping first and enjoyment next. But now I think that model also may sort of get reversed a little bit, where you'll have apps like Pinterest and Instagram, which are inherently content first, then start introduce shopping within their flow. So it is a content first experience that provides shopping, as opposed to a shopping first experience that's trying to be immersive.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kabir. I do want to pause and just let everyone know who's listening. If you have any questions, please do submit them in the chat, because we do have more topics that we can discuss on the panel, unless there are burning questions. So if you have any, please submit them now. That'd be great. All right, great. Thanks again. And Kabir, I had to look up the word hedonic, so I'm very excited to use that in my vocabulary now.
Hedonic just means, when you're shopping out of pure pleasure, which is what window shopping normally is. So if you're going to the mall and it is a source of recreation, it's a recreational shopping, as opposed to just having to buy shampoo and toilet paper.
Is the root hedonistic? Like, I don't know, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. All right, we're doing big things. Great. Okay, so I was hearing, Kabir, when you were talking about influencers, it actually, Liz, made me curious to get your thoughts on some of the emerging channels that you are excited about, or that you're planning on trying out this year, whether it's for organic or paid user acquisition. Like, what are some of the things that you're keeping your eye on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's been a really interesting transition in marketing from 2020 to now. 2020 was really focused on like mass reach, spending just to spend. And we started to, as the pandemic progressed, see an uptick in audience investments and investments on things that we don't always see, which make me really happy. So like owned efforts, MarTech, which again, I love, and user experience. You'd be surprised how many app marketers don't always invest in creating the best experience. And we saw that change a lot through 2020. I think this year is going to be really, really interesting because on top of COVID, we have all of these privacy changes happening, right? We have iOS 14.5, we have the shift to a cookieless world for those clients that have dual experiences. So there are a handful of trends that I see. First one, Kabir, totally with you, huge growth in influencers. This isn't going anywhere. It's going to keep growing. I highly recommend most verticals, most app verticals start investing in this strategy, right? Between nano and micro and macro influencers, there's really strong ways to make this work across any budget. On top of that, we're seeing a strong increase in first-party data usage and first-party data refinement for architecture. So that's something we highly recommend doing. Is first-party data has always been important, but it's going to become even more important in marketing moving forward. And I think beyond that, diversification of channels. So OTT and CTV is growing really, really fast. There's new social platforms a lot of the time. And I think we're going to see a lot of people spending differently and trying to reach consumers where they are because consumer patterns are changing. And I think probably the last piece to that is there's going to be a lot of focus on loyalty this year in comparison to previous years. We're going to see a lot more invested in email, push notifications, in-app messaging, things that keep people coming back to app experiences versus just pure user acquisition, cast a wide net and bring people in. So I think that's going to be another major trend. So data, influencers, diversification of channels, and growth in life cycle are kind of what I'm seeing for 2021.
Great. Yeah. And for anyone who's on the line, who's listening, you guys are building out these things right now, building out your marketing stack as you're focusing across different channels and thinking about how does, this tool actually speak to this tool, feel free again to reach out to me and I'm happy to connect you with resources or even other people on my team to talk about that. So definitely want everyone on the line to feel like they have, community in that sense. So thank you so much, Liz. And then Kyle as well, I wanted to get your opinion on, given the fact that you're in this productivity space, and we were talking about, how do we deal with the shifts that have already happened and the ones that are upcoming. What are the trends that you anticipate we will see as people do come back to the office? And like generally, will they come back? And how do you perceive that to look if you had a crystal ball and since you do have some additional insight into productivity?
Yeah, so I do think people will come back. It's going to be different than before though. So I think that's an important thing. And we're already seeing, some people start to come back. And I think there's just going to be some interesting trends and kind of a sorting function. Like as different companies come back, some have already said that they're going to be, completely remote or remote first. Others, are kind of working their way back. Others are kind of wait and see. So I kind of see it as really, I think the best companies are going to have kind of like 5 main points that they're focused on as they go through this like transition phase. And I think that most companies are really going to settle into some sort of hybrid working approach. And that's where we're going to end up. And there's going to be a spectrum across. And I think everybody's going to find where they fit into that spectrum. But I think that the best teams and organizations are going to find that they're going to have to be purposeful in what they're doing. So like employees will come back, but it's going to have to be for a purpose, kind of like Kabir mentioned with shopping. Like it's not just going to be about, just kind of coming in and doing it for whatever. It's going to be much more about like, why are we coming together into the office? Like it's not just like everybody has to be in because that's what we do. There's going to be a purpose for it. And because of that, I think teams are going to have to be intentional around like, what are we doing? Like, what are our norms as a team? When are we going to be remote? When are we going to be doing meetings? Like, kind of like Omi mentioned, like there's value in having some of those whiteboarding sessions and getting together in person. And so having intention around those types of things and then making sure that there's like the technology to support that. And we've already seen kind of a burgeoning boom around some of that, and we're just going to see that trend continue, especially as a lot of technology companies and workplace companies start to put in the technology that supports this type of thing. So, and that kind of leads into the idea that it's going to be very human-centered, because everybody has different needs. Like there are some of us who are very, very comfortable with the remote work environment and want to stay that way. Others who, you know, need to get back into the office for a variety of reasons. And so again, there will be like a broad spectrum, and finding the place that everybody kind of fits within that. And so making sure that it's flexible as well within an organization, and having the technology to support that flexibility, to find people to do the collaboration, to make sure there's no second-class citizens like there were before. Like remote was second class in, you know, a year or two ago, and making sure that that doesn't happen. And then it's going to be iterative. Like if you listen to a lot of CEOs and people talking about it now, nobody really knows like what the future looks like. And I think it's going to vary company by company, industry by industry, and location by location. So we're going to have to find the norms as people start to come back. And I don't think anybody, I wish I had a crystal ball, but I don't think anybody knows exactly what it's going to look like. And so to do it right, it's going to have to be an iterative process, but making sure that you kind of keep those things in mind, that it's purposeful, intentional, human-centered, and ultimately like flexible, so that, you know, it's not this idea of we're going back to the way it was. I know some people think that, especially I saw a quote from a high-level CEO yesterday saying that he wants to pull everybody back in. He's tired of remote Zoom meetings, and everybody needs to just suck it up and start commuting and get back to the office. And that to me is a very backwards looking way of doing it. I think if we look forward, it's going to be very different, but it's going to be much more productive and much better for everybody, with the right intention and the right technology to support that flexibility.
Guys, thank you so much. We do have a couple of minutes left, and thank you, Kyle, for that. I think one thing that I'm taking away as I kind of go through everything we've spoken about here is mindfulness, right? Like mindfulness in how you're building your product, mindfulness in how you're adapting your environment, mindfulness in how you're spending your time that is in person. And I think that is truly helpful, as I've been thinking about what that's going to look like for me is, what is the intent of this meeting in person? And, how do we then decide? Just since we have a couple more minutes, does anyone else have like a definite takeaway that as a team, they've been like, we are implementing this after we go back, whether that's full-time or not, like this is helpful. And they would say, I want to recommend this to other people that are on the line. Because I think generally those are the questions that have been submitted here.
I definitely have a takes on this. So a couple things that I am going to implement for my team is that there will be working half days, so not full days, but like working half days where like it's think of it as setting up a meeting, but it has to be in person to be a forcing function to get people actually into the office. The reason for that is that if I don't do that, there'll be more and more people just staying off remote, and then it's going to be more difficult for the folks who want to come in to actually have sessions, because sometimes just being in the same place causes some synergies to happen. Kind of like how if for managers, if you don't do regular one-on-ones with your team, you sense a drift away from how involved or how much you know about what's actually happening. The same thing, I think, for teams as a whole, saying, okay, great, Tuesday mornings, we're all going to be in the office. That's when we can have our weekly. That's when we can have and actually be like pointed at like, okay, these are when we're having these specific meetings, and these meetings are going to be in the office. You can leave and head back home afterwards, but have that time there. That's one thing that I do want to sort of do. The second thing is something that I've been very not that great on, but I'll be a lot more strict on, is having actual forced time splits off of work. Because one of the biggest things that has happened with remote work is that people are working work and like going through the whole day late at night. So they're spending more and more time. They're not taking vacation time. They're not doing the things that help them not to burn out. So being strict to say, you know what, folks, don't send emails past 6 p.m. except if it's really important. I really try and drive that sort of call culture in. So those are the two things that that I think that I'm going to sort of try and drive from a culture standpoint. I want to make note that this is more of a culture standpoint than really strict rules, right? So.
Right.
Right.
I thank you so much for sharing. I hate that we're ending this. I genuinely, it's been such a pleasure meeting each of you. So I hope for everyone that you can come to the next event. We have some great panelists, and thank you so much, all of you, for sharing on the personal side as well. I feel like very honored to have met you guys, and this is what brings us together and inspires, connection and conversation and how we make each other better. So thank you so much. And I hope that we all get to connect again. So take care, everybody, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.